So I think we're going to be live in about a few seconds. Okay, so we're live now. Good afternoon. Welcome to this Healthwatch Bury live session. My name is Catherine and I'm an engagement officer at Healthwatch Bury. Today we're joined by Michelle from Fightback4Justice and Artie Carden, and we're going to be talking about PIP and disability benefits. So I have a few introductory slides, so I'll just share my screen now and get those up. Okay, hopefully you can all see those now. So I just briefly want to go through our commenting guidelines. So if you want to interact with us, comment, share some questions or experiences yourself, just make sure that your comments are accepting, respect people's boundaries, and are not intentionally rude to provoke our speakers today. We do moderate the comments on these live streams and also on the recordings of these sessions as well, because I will be uploading this video to our YouTube page afterwards. And if you do have a question, please don't flood the chat. We will get to your question. This is not a space to promote your product. Remember, this is a public space, so make sure the language you're using is suitable for everyone. So just a brief overview of the session today. So I'm going to give a little introduction into Healthwatch and what we do, in case you're joining us from the Fightback4Justice page or Artie's page and you haven't come across us before. And then Michelle is going to give you a brief overview of Fightback and what she does there. And then Artie is going to share their lived experience of applying for disability benefits and how that affected them. And then Steph's going to be hosting a bit of a Q&A discussion after that. So if you have any questions, you can comment them below and we'll get to them in the Q&A section. So who are we? We are Healthwatch Bury. We're a local Healthwatch, but we're part of a network of around 150 local health watchers across the UK. So if you're watching and you don't live in Bury, there will definitely be a local health watch where you live. And we are a health and social care champion. We make sure that NHS leaders and other decision makers hear your voice and use your feedback to improve care. And our general aim is to improve services for the people who use them. So we listen to your experiences, and the way we do that is usually through our surveys. At the moment, we're looking into urgent care services, but obviously if you have another experience to share, you can contact us anytime to share that experience with us. And we can also provide you with information and advice about local services, like we're doing today, telling you about Fightback, because obviously they are a local service to us. And our reports have influenced change in Bury, such as improving digital access and GP access as well. So ways we can support you. We can provide you with information and advice about services. We can help you navigate the health and social care system, and that's especially important at the moment. If you have been diagnosed with something like long COVID, we can help you sort of navigate this system and those referral pathways. Most importantly, listen to your experiences. And there are a variety of ways that we do that. So you can contact us by phone, email. We can attend one of our drop-in sessions. So we do regular drop-in sessions around Bury, and we also have new virtual drop-ins as well. And you can find that information on our website. And I will just share those contact details with you briefly. I have popped them in the description box of this video. If you do want to phone us, our number is 0161 253 6300. Our WhatsApp is +44 73 77 45 44 46. Our email is info@healthwatchbury.co.uk. Our Twitter is just @healthwatchbury, and on there we'll share information about local events, training courses, a variety of things really. And if you're watching live today, this is our Facebook page. Make sure you give that a like if you're not already following our page, because we do lives quite often now, and we have a variety of guest speakers for you to listen to. And our YouTube channel is Healthwatch Bury, and that's where I'll upload the past live streams, so you can check those out. And our website is healthwatchbury.co.uk, and on there we have a lot of sort of information and advice about health and social care, so you can check that out as well later today. So I'm going to pass you over to Michelle, who's going to tell you a bit more about what she does at Fightback.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle Carden, founder of Fightback4Justice. We're a social welfare community interest company based in Bury, but we do cover the whole of the UK, and we help people navigate the benefit system, mainly disability benefits such as pay, PSA, universal credit. We help with appeals, applications. We also help to try and make change as well by speaking to the people that can make the changes and dealing with local MPs, etc. We help with a variety of different disability benefits, including PIP, universal credit, ESA, attendance allowance. We can also help with blue badge appeals and applications, basically anything that involves disability benefits we can advise on. We have a free advice line that's open Monday to Friday that you can ring, and I'm sure that the details will be shared later on. There's no point going through that. We also have other services available where we can advise on email and Facebook Messenger, and we are getting hundreds and hundreds of emails and messages every day or so. So we just ask that you're patient. If you do contact us, we will get back to everybody. There are a lot of problems at the moment with regards to disability benefits, particularly PIP. We're having a lot of issues with PIP at the moment, particularly where people are going to reclaim or review their award. We're finding a lot of people are being taken off or reduced, finding they're having the points reduced when they come to do that. There are a number of reasons for that at the moment, being mainly the fact that DWP have taken over the role of doing a lot of the reviews themselves now. And obviously DWP are not medically trained. So we are finding there are some very recent issues with regards to that. We tend to try and advise people on what kind of evidence to gain. A lot of people think that DWP will contact the doctor when they need to. That isn't necessarily the case, and often they don't even contact them at all. If they do contact them, they have to have a response within a certain amount of days. And we all know what it's like getting hold of your GP at the moment, at the best of times. So, you know, the onus is on you to provide as much information as possible about your claim or an appeal in the first instance. So that's where a lot of people sort of don't realise they're falling down on the first claim. So again, you know, we can advise on that. We have monthly drop-ins, the first Wednesday of every month, which we're just about to start again. We also have drop-ins throughout the borough. We are looking at drop-ins further afield as well, which is something that we've discussed and completed prior to COVID, obviously restrictions. But our next drop-in is in the office. That will be the first Wednesday and Thursday of the month next month. And you know, we do try and help wherever we can. We have referrals all the time from other organisations, and where we can, we work with other organisations as well to do joint drop-ins if possible. So you know, anything that you need help with, then we can try and help with that. If we can't help, we'll try and refer to somebody who can. But really, that's us in a nutshell. We've been going nearly 11 years, just short of 10 years, nearly 11. 10 years in the offices, and we've been, prior to that, we was on Facebook for a year before. So we have been doing this for a long time, and most of us are legally qualified as well. So that's it really, that's us. Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. Artie, do you want to start sharing your experience?
Sure. So I have applied twice now. The first time was in about 2016. This was sort of around the time when I was starting to understand that I actually am disabled. And it was before I was more complicated than I am now. At the time, I was diagnosed with hypermobility syndrome and fibromyalgia and dyslexia. And even though it wasn't a great experience going through it, it was a lot more mild than my second experience, which was last January, actually, where my, what are they called? My brain's not quite working.
The review form. Was it the review?
Yeah, it was the sort of, it wasn't a new.
Yeah, it's a review. It's not the full form. You get a shorter version of the form. It's called an AR1, but yeah, so a shorter version. Ask how things have changed.
Yeah, pretty much that. And I've been told by a lot of other people that you should still put everything you put from your last form anyway, because they don't really seem to look back on anything. So I did that as well. I sent in a very large letter about probably this width of extra supporting evidence, letters, assessments and stuff like that. And my actual assessment, the assessor I had was very hot, cold, said some quite rude things to me. She had one of my conditions, she had fibromyalgia, and it kind of seemed like she was then using that to compare her experiences to mine and my abilities, even though I have also a long list of other things and everybody's different anyway. I had one person helping me at the time who was part of like a rare conditions support group. So she was kind of like a support worker, but she was in Wales. So it wasn't quite well received by the PIP assessor either, that she was from Wales. But she was helping me the way she could, because a lot of stuff was over the phone or digitally because of COVID. I also found the form didn't really take into consideration COVID at all. Things like, have you been to A&E in the last year? And I'm like, no, I've been locked away in my house. Why would I go to A&E if I might be at risk of catching COVID? And most A&E departments can't really help my conditions anyway. So yeah, a lot of those sorts of things weren't really thought about. I think a lot of the time that because I've become someone with a long list of conditions, some of them people have never heard of before, like I have Takayasu's arthritis. They don't really understand how that affects anybody. And because I haven't had like an official diagnosis for things like ADHD and autism before that assessment, a lot of my difficulties I've put down on this form were not believed because I didn't have a diagnosis to explain those things. And yeah, it was actually completely denied. So I'd lost what I had beforehand, which sent me into a 3.5-hour meltdown in my bedroom, because like I said, I've been diagnosed with quite a few more things that are quite life-threatening since 2016. So I had to write the MR, but I did get what I had before back, but I still feel like I should have received more, because I have a lot of other things that have now affected, like mobility, and like my hypermobile joints. I can now actually verbalize how those affect me. But there's a lot of contradictory or ways that they kind of dismiss things that you write. So because I can drive, I apparently don't have any problems cutting up my food when I have very bendy joints in my hands, which don't really affect driving or have anything to do with driving. So things like that. I'm not on anxiety medication, so I have no problems leaving the house. Things like that that just seem a bit ridiculous, or because I once worked a job, I have no problems with communication. Yeah, so a lot of things that I have once done, whether I was actually good at doing them or not, were held against me in that. So that was kind of my experience with the most recent one. I don't know if there's anything else that you want me to talk about.
Can I just comment on some of the things that you've said? It might give a better understanding. Obviously, from a legal point of view, we see this quite a lot. Obviously, a lot of the comments that you've made are quite standard for a lot of our clients that come through. So first and foremost, the amount of information that you send to them, we always suggest that don't overwhelm them. You talk about people who have 20 minutes to read your form and any supporting documents. Now, it's wrong, but 9 times out of 10, they're very pushed for time and they may not read everything. So if you send your whole life history back to date of diagnosis, etc., or even some people send records going back to birth, there's no point. You're better off sending last 3 years, ideally, or if you've had one assessment in 2016, go from 16 to the date of, obviously, the date of the day you're sending them. So we would suggest to show that any changes or any reiterating what you've still got is quite clear and straightforward. So getting your GP records and your specialist reports is quite crucial, but don't overwhelm them with stuff that really wouldn't be relevant or would be repeated in the last year anyway. So that's
I mean, I feel like I did that because I have quite a lot of conditions that are very complex. There isn't really a way of...
though. This is the problem. People don't understand that it isn't the conditions, it's how they affect you. And the way that DWP and the assessment providers work is they look at a series of functions that you do, and obviously the PIP descriptors, and they look at then what else you can do that might be similar. So when you said about the driving, it's very, very common. In every single bundle for court, I see the same thing. And it says, you're driving, so therefore your grip's okay. And I totally agree, it's not the same grip, completely agree with that. But you can also show that if you're only driving once a week, for instance, when you need to, and you're only going local areas because the pain's too much, if you had to go further, or you were driving an automatic, or you had a steering knob, for instance, instead of, you know, even an electric handbrake, so you're not physically lifting, you know, if you have shoulder dislocations and you're physically lifting a full handbrake up, then it would go against you. But if you've got a little electric thing that you just press with your finger, then that's different. But they do look at things such as the cognitive ability to be able to drive. And it is used against virtually every single person on application. So if you're saying that cognitively you can't remember to take your medication or the order in which to prepare a very simple meal, but you can remember how to apply an emergency stop, and you can remember how to drive your vehicle in which order to do it, then it's obvious that they're going to use that against you. So what your job then is to prove that, no, I have other issues as well, or I can only drive first thing in the morning when I've taken my medication and it's kicked in. By the end of the day, the cognition issues are so poor that I can't do that. And provide maybe statements from people who help you. Diaries, for instance, are always quite good as long as they're not too lengthy. And other things such as if DVLA have been informed, then you send proof that you've got restrictions on your license, or you're under review every 2 years, for instance. But the driving is a massive thing with regards to PIP. Most people fail, or it's like the finishing point that they use if they're driving and say that they have issues that might be relative to driving as well. So it is wrong that they do that, but it is something that they look at.
Okay, I still have done a lot of those things that you suggested, or the things you suggested are just more paperwork. So it seems to kind of contradict itself as well, of like anything that I could do to try and provide more evidence is then still not going to be read.
With regards to other issues, so certainly with an MR, we would go through systematically and look at each individual descriptor and whether that applied for most of the time, because that's what we're looking at. We're not looking at you have issues once a day with this, for instance. So you say communication. So communication looks at your verbal communication, like you're communicating now. It looks at whether you can hear, so whether you hear properly or whether you have a speech impediment that would probably prevent other people from understanding you most of the time. It also looks at the cognitive side with regards to do you understand, but it doesn't look at, it's a very simple task. And again, the problem is with these, the DWP do not explain this on the form. It almost sounds like, do you have any issues with communicating with people? Most people think that's to do with anxiety. It isn't. It's a separate, completely separate descriptor. It's to do with the sensory issue of hearing somebody and being heard. That's it. Very simple. If there was something, say for instance, say there was a task that, say you, the use in the descriptors manual, that if you had a fire in a building, for instance, and you knew where the exit was for everybody to get out, would you be able to transfer that information over so people knew about it? So would you be able to stand and say, look, there's the exit, I can see the sign, you know, go that way. And that's a very simple communication task completed as far as they're concerned. So that's how it works. And they will go through each individual descriptor. Now, when it comes to certain descriptors for the conditions you have, you will be looking firstly, which is what the DWP do, they look at the physical problems first. So they look at whether you need an aid. So whether it's easier to sit down or more often than not, you would need to have an aid. It would benefit you for doing certain tasks, or whether you know, you need to have somebody with you, but they always look at it in that order, and that's the way the assessors look at. And often they'll get to a certain point and then they won't do any more. So they'll ask if you've got an aid, for instance, for cooking. So it's a hob-based meal, so sat at a hob. Could you manage with all the aids that were available to make a simple meal for one person most of the time? So if you say, well, I've got a perching stool, that'll be it. They'll cut off at that point and they'll just give you 2 points and they'll move on to the next one. But what you've obviously got to put forward is that I have an aid, but say 3 days a week I might be able to manage, but the rest of the time I have to have somebody help me, because not only is it the fact that I've got aids, but cognitively I'm not able to process the information to cook a basic meal. So if that's the case, obviously. So it's going that one step further with it. It is difficult because you're fighting against the department and against the assessment reports, which are loaded against you to begin with. But it does depend very greatly on what else you're doing, like working and driving and anything else, such as you might have had a really good job years ago. So they will use that against you to show that you can understand cognitively what people are saying and process that information to the standard that they require. So, unfortunately. Okay, so sorry, you were saying about the rest of the process then. Did you go to court? Did you take it to court if you didn't agree?
No, because it was so distressing to deal with at MR that I did not want to deal with trying to pursue it further.
Okay.
Because I do feel like I've done those things that you keep suggesting, but it just, the goalposts are different with each assessor. And each time you go in, that it just doesn't really seem to matter what you put on the form a lot of the time or what you say to them, because anything that you say or do is used against you regardless of any evidence you provide.
Okay, so with regards to different assessors, obviously you've had, I'm assuming, a phone assessment. Did you have the second time? Or was it? Yeah. So the first time you would have had a face-to-face. Yeah. Okay, so your face-to-face assessment report, have you got a copy of that? The first one you had?
Somewhere, yeah.
Okay, so we would use, if we were doing an MR, we would use that first one against the second one. So the points that have been observed in the first one, obviously they can't observe you in the second because it was a telephone assessment. All they can do is listen for things in your voice, which is what they say. You didn't sound, you know, they'll use things like you didn't sound anxious on the phone, but they can't see you. So they don't know whether you showed that you were anxious. Just because it doesn't come out in your voice doesn't mean to say, you know, that you're not anxious. So it's things like that. But whereas in the first one, it does say that you were extremely anxious, that they noted that, and they noted that you had severe restrictions with some of your musculoskeletal exercises that they might have asked you to do in the first one, then again, that's not likely to have changed with the conditions that you've got. So we would use that and offset one assessor against the other, if you know what I mean. So you could compare the two. And we also suggest getting any ESA or UC assessments as well, if you've had any of those in recent years. Any other assessments such as blue badge applications, assessment through an OT, work, home, anything that you've had from an occupational therapist, you can always gain these assessment reports. You've not had anything?
Not before this last PIP review, no.
Okay, so even afterwards, so if you've had an assessment, say 6 months ago, and your decision was 9 months ago, you can still use that as evidence, and you can still use it in court if you needed to. So we always look at trying to gain other assessment reports, because it gives a contradictory stand on how things are. So the more you load it up on your side, the more chance DWP or a court are going to back down. With regards to court, it's interesting to know that whereas our figures for MRs is something like, I think officially it's about 7% of MRs are overturned. We have with ours it's about 25, I think. So there's very few people succeed on MR. But the court figures is completely different. So our figures are 90% of our hearings are overturned, and we don't pick and choose our cases either. So we take everybody on. We try and strengthen it as much as we can. Some of them are a bit hit and miss, and they know the borderline. So that's probably why we've got 90%. But as far as official figures go, they're only 62. So you've still got a better chance, but you've got a better chance of winning on an appeal than you have on an MR. You've got a far, far better chance. So it is worth appealing, because you can always ask for a paper-based hearing. You don't even have to attend. And we find that a good 30% of those appeals are overturned in advance by the department, because once it gets passed over to the legal department who deal with the appeals, they pass your MR back over as well. And we find that a lot of people are then overturned as soon as they've lodged their appeal, because it's almost like somebody with a bit more knowledge from the department has looked at it and said, well, hang on a minute, you have got a case here, and you should at least get these points. So they often amend those and withdraw them from court if that's the case. Or they might give you more points and then say, look, will you accept this? And they come to like a bit of an agreement with you. So it is definitely worth appealing, even if you don't want to attend, just based on what you've already got. You've already gained all your information. You've got nothing to lose by appealing it, really.
Except if you've got something.
If you've already got something and you're going for a paper-based one, you have nothing to lose, because they can only take it off you or reduce it. One, if you've got extremely conflicting medical evidence to what you're saying, and it's unlikely, if you've had it overturned in MR, it's unlikely that that's the case. So if they've given you too many points, which is unlikely, but if they do, then they have to warn you in court, and they very seriously have to warn you. So they have to make it very, very clear that you are going to potentially lose some of your points, or that they are looking at particular parts of the evidence that you've sent in and have concerns about it. And if you're on your own in that appeal and you have no legal representation, which most people haven't, then they will adjourn it and tell you to go and get advice. That's where we get a lot of people coming to us at that point. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose it, but there's a good chance that the judge has seen something in your reports that says that you might do. Now, it very rarely happens. In the 10 years that I've been doing these appeals, I've known it happened to 2 people before they came to us, and we got it back for them. And then there was another lady who had a warning in court. Now, we actually advised her that she was likely to get a warning, because 4 of her medical experts had basically given contradictory reports, and we couldn't get anything to contradict it. It was quite clear that was the case, and she agreed to pursue it even further. We pulled out when they told us to pull out, so she didn't lose it. So there wasn't any particular cases that have actually lost their award. People will tell you you've got a chance of risking your award. You have always got a chance of risking your award if you've got one. But if you are sure that your conditions are affecting you the way that you're saying, and you've gained advice and you've looked at all the medical records, and your medical records show that there has been a deterioration in your condition, maybe under new specialists, etc. Your medication's probably gone up, then you shouldn't have any risk to an award that you've already got. And if you did have a risk, they would warn you. So no, you haven't got anything to lose by going to court, unless you get a warning and then proceed.
Okay, I just also think that it's just generally not good enough that we have to go to court for these things.
I know, and we advise everybody to contact their MP to, you know, if the only way to affect change is to keep highlighting it, and the only people that can push it in Parliament are your MPs. We go on ITV. I don't know if you've seen any of our ITV programmes. We've been on ITV 4 times trying to highlight different areas of PIP and where there's massive problems with it and flaws. You know, there's only so much that everybody can do, but if everybody did it, then it does affect change eventually. But unfortunately, you know, you're sometimes batting against, you know, a brick wall. It's just not much you can do. But I mean, we try and have assessment provider meetings, DWP meetings regularly to try and say, look, you know, you might not be able to change your policies, but look at doing this instead. You know, just simple things such as informing people. We've just helped with a campaign to try and get all PIP assessments recorded without having to provide your own recording equipment. Now that's new. I don't know if you know about that, but you can now.
Yeah, I saw that the other day.
Yeah, you can record it on your own phone as long as you let them know and they consent and you consent at the beginning of the recording. So that's made things a little easier. So when it comes to being I say, you know, you're saying one thing, I'm saying another, then it's a little easier to prove with the recording, and it can be used as evidence in court as well. Because 90% of the time people come to us and they'll say, well, I didn't say that, or that's not how I said it, it's been twisted, or at least with the recording now you can actually show that actually it has. You know, you don't have to go about proving that you're a credible person. So there are things that are changing slowly, and with a lot of campaigning from ourselves and big groups that do try and do that. But really, you know, at the moment we have what we have, and the best way to gain an award is to make sure, if you don't agree with it, you appeal. If you feel that you should have been getting more points and things are a lot worse, only you know if they were worse. If you feel that your functionality as far as those descriptors is a lot worse, so for instance, your mobility is a lot worse than last time and you haven't been given an award, then you should appeal it, because you know, if you do what we've said and you don't get a warning, then you've got a good chance of an appeal erring on your side, basically through the court or in advance of that. Yeah.
My understanding of appeals is that you have a limited time to do that after your last assessment, and also from a lot of people who I know who have done the appeals, they can take years and you don't receive PIP.
Not anymore, it's changed. So 2 years ago, before COVID, we were waiting on average 12 to 14 months for an appeal once it had been lodged to be heard, depending on certain circumstances. Now, because of COVID, the restrictions that imposed, they've actually got the finger out and they've actually realised that they can actually do CVP hearings, which is online like this, and they can also do telephone hearings very easily and quickly, which required less travel, no travel at all. And obviously the panel members could do more hearings. So they now have increased the hearings so much so that it's about 3 months on average now wait from filing your appeal to the actual hearing. In fact, I've got a hearing later today where the actual appeal was only filed 5 weeks ago and she's being heard today. So they are really pulling the finger out with regards to telephone and video hearings. If you do opt for a face-to-face, and it is your choice which one you want. So if you opt for a face-to-face, it might be a little bit longer because they have to wait for the venues, etc. But there's still no greater than 6 months in our experience. With regards to filing it, you have officially 30 months and a day from the date of that mandatory reconsideration failure letter to file an appeal with the court. They won't tell you that, and they don't tell you that on the papers. They tell you you've got a month. But with reasonable adjustments in place, which everybody's got because they've got a disability, so they fall under the Equality Act, then you have up to 13 months and a day. And that's been officially set by case law for about 4 years now. So even if you haven't appealed previously and you decide 6 months down the line, do you know what, I'm going to fight this and I'm going to go from it, I'm going to put an appeal in, you can still do so. The only thing you need to bear in mind is the courts can only look at the date of the decision or around that date, so the qualifying period of that date. So if your decision, for instance, your mandatory reconsideration that come back and said, no, we're not giving you any more than you said, if that's dated, say, June last year, you have until July this year to file that, but they will only look around the June, July time for whether how things were at that time. So if, for instance, 2 months later, you had a complete breakdown and your mental health got a lot worse, they wouldn't be able to take that into account. That would be a new claim. But as far as applying for an appeal, then you can do that 30 months and a day up to the date of the decision letter, the second decision letter. Okay, so you still got time if you wanted to.
Only about a month.
Well, it's still doing it. We've done it on the day. We filed one on, literally, she rang us up. She didn't know about us. She rang us up and she said, right, what day have you got? So we worked it out. It was the next day it ran out. So we filed it that day. As long as you filed it, you've then got a couple of months to get all your information together and get it to them. You don't have to give your grounds. You can just put on the application when you're filing it, you do it online, it's dead easy. You just put, see my MR, I will forward further information. And then at least it gives you a bit of breathing space to get together any statements or anything else that you feel like you've not got, just to strengthen your case. It's in some cases, like yourself, you might already have everything that you need. So, you know, even if you've only got a month, it's worth doing it. If you feel that at the time of the decision, you should have been given more points. Now, what I would also suggest you do is you look at the points and look maybe at the assessment manual and just make sure that those extra points would give you a greater award, because it might only give you 10 points or 11 points. You need 12 to get a higher award. So just make sure you would get enough. You might increase your points, but if you're going to risk, like I say, you know, you are risking the fact that you go into court, although you won't, if you don't get a warning, you'll be fine. But there's no point if you know you're not going to get a higher award. There's no point putting yourself through that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as well that the applications themselves don't really take all kinds of disability into account, because a lot of the questions can be seen from different angles that are appropriate for different disabilities. That, you know, things that maybe I'm not deaf or hard of hearing, but I do have auditory processing issues because I'm autistic, so I can't hear people a lot of the time, particularly in crowded areas or public, that can greatly affect my functioning or safety as well. And then as well, lots of things that they have sort of quite a broad overarching, oh, I struggle reading and understanding what I read, but they only care about it in any capacity rather than the capacity of actually being able to keep yourself safe. So if I struggle to read instructions to do with like my medications or how to get to somewhere for an appointment or something, that doesn't count because I can read other things without issues. So that's kind of where I have a lot of problems with the PIP process in general, is that they don't really seem to actually be that inclusive of all kinds of disabilities. And even though I have a broad spectrum of different types, I'm still not disabled enough to really be considered needing help, even though I've never really been able to work a job for more than 3 months at a time, and I always burn myself out and get incredibly mentally unwell afterwards or during doing that. I haven't actually worked at a traditional job since like right before the pandemic anyway, and that was only 3 months part-time, and I was fired for being disabled. And education is another thing of like, well, I enjoy learning and I enjoy doing those things, but if I'm not doing it any further, that goes against me. But if I am doing any further, it goes against me. So like, you know, I had a lot of different things put in place when I was at university for my disabilities, including things like a taxi to actually take me from my house to campus because of my joints, especially in winter. I had extended deadlines. I was constantly in their mental well-being services, things like that. Those gave me more proof of like, hey, it's actually really difficult for me to function in a traditional setting that's maybe not set up for disabled people. But when I've been at home unable to work for several years.
Well, with regards to help that you had at uni, I mean, it depends how many years ago it was, but it's certainly worth putting that on the form. I would also suggest, or telling the assessor, you know, because they do use, for the cognition side, they will use that against you, and wrongly so. But if you mention that you had awarded taxes to and from university, then that's really important, because obviously it showed that somebody recognised that you couldn't physically walk from there to there, or potentially get on public transport. So anything that sort of backs up your story and backs up your case like that, even if it's quite historical, is always really important. We do it with children as well. If we get 16, 17-year-olds that apply for PIP after they've had DLA, a lot of the time they refuse based on the fact that when they come to go to college that they can get themselves there. But what parents sometimes fail to put into the forms is that, hang on, we've got a funded taxi here from the local authority, or, you know, parents take to and from, because there's no way you could jump on a bus or anything else. So it's always quite relevant to mention that, even if it's a few years ago, because obviously they're saying their side. So on an MR, I would have been putting that in. You probably did, but you know, it is something that's quite important. Now, with regards to the way that the questions are loaded, I agree, totally agree. They are absolutely not like it's one size fits all, and it doesn't, because everybody's disability is different. PIP is very much loaded towards physical conditions rather than mental health conditions or autism, etc. It is not loaded towards people who have problems sometimes, for most of the time, but they can do other things. And particularly with autism, we're finding quite a lot of people can function. They can go to, we've got a lot of, at the moment, there's a big group of people that potentially have left school and they've gone on to go to college. And because they're able to do that and function and do that, they're then able to prepare, you know, a simple meal for one and understand how to do that and understand the risks involved. But that's not the case, because it's very different. Studying is very different to common sense in some respects, and learning how things can hurt you, and obviously the order at which things are. With regards to cooking a simple meal, especially when you've got heat and you've got alarms and you've got things like that going on at the same time, but they don't understand that, and this is where the PIP forms need a complete revamp. I mean, we do understand that there is a big change coming up. They are looking at making big changes. I know that the latest recommendations are that it's revamped completely. The danger we've got at the moment is that they're looking at merging two assessments together. They're doing trials at the moment for the UC ESA work capability assessment and for PIP assessments to be merged in the next couple of years, which is something we don't agree with, because if you fail one, you're going to fail on both, whereas most of our clients have one benefit and not the other, and we use that benefit against them. We use that for them, with regards to evidence. So the UC report, for instance, for an MR, for a PIP appeal. But yeah, you're going to lose that ability to be able to do that if one assessor has assessed you for both benefits, which is completely wrong. DWP has spent years and years and years saying, no, the different benefits, just because you're getting, just because you've got limited capacity for work-related activity doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't be able to work for PIP. And they've used it against us for years, and now all of a sudden it's okay to merge them together, which again is down to campaigning and going to your local MP, have a right moan saying, look, these questions aren't right, they don't help me at all. And it is really a matter of pushing and pushing and pushing through for change, campaigning. There's not a lot else as far as the actual forms go. I mean, we fight the DWP, we're not the DWP. I can only tell you as it is from our point of view, and I totally understand, it's frustrating. Every single form is not a one size fits all for everybody, and they do need something doing to them. And the same with the questions from the assessment providers. They are the same questions. The assessors get fed up with them. The assessors, the turnaround for jobs for assessments is the highest turnaround, or one of the highest turnarounds in any profession. You know, and that explain why, because it's so difficult to assess somebody when every condition is different, and every form, you know, doesn't fit every condition. So I completely agree with you on that point.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I was just going to move us along to the Q&A section, if that's okay, because I know we could talk about this all day. So Steph, did you have some questions for Michelle or Artie?
So hi Bill. Hi. So my first question is to Michelle. So you say that you've been doing this 10 years now, Michelle. What sort of encouraged you to set this up? Obviously, you started online. Now you've gone to things face to face. So what made you set Fightback4Justice up, really?
That's a good question. Thanks, Steph. I used to work at Citizens Advice Bureau. I was in the law department in Bolton, and I used to volunteer as well for Bury. I did quite a few of the drop-ins that they used to do many years ago. And when I finished, I went back to university and did my degree later on. When I came out of university, I was taken on by Bolton CAB, and I sort of got thrown in welfare benefits. It wasn't my chosen subject. I wanted to be an employment lawyer. That's what I trained to be. But when I went to CAB, it was the busiest department, and I just got shoved in a room with a DLA form saying, sort that out on my first day. Never seen a DLA form in my life. And I decided quite quickly that this was a way we could maybe help people more than with what I was training to do. So it sort of went from there, really, and I learned as much as I could. At the time I was working at CAB, PIP was just about to be introduced. So it was 2013, 12-13. So they hadn't actually brought it in until the April. So I sort of realised, being a young law student, well, not young, older law student, realised what difficulties were going to come out for people who were already claiming DLA and when they transferred over. And it's very contradictory. It's one of the worst pieces of legislation that's ever been written. And I'm sure that in years to come, they'll realise this and maybe backtrack, and it'll probably be the stuff of university lecturers. But at the moment, you know, there were things that I could do at that time to help people, and I wanted to warn people. So when we all got made redundant, which we did shortly afterward, about a year later, I went on Facebook and I made a page that night, thinking I'll just warn people what to expect, because this is coming. And you know, in the April it was coming. So in the January I set the page up, and I think it was probably by that summer we'd reached about 10,000 likes at that point without even trying, and it just went from there. I mean, we're on 68,000 now, and we have a lot of people that contact us now. But it was that, and since then we've just gone, you know, more and more people need help, so we've got bigger and bigger, and obviously you know, tried to get as many volunteers in as we could. We've been hit a lot with COVID, obviously. That stopped us doing a lot of our things, but it made us go down a different route, which was encouraging the courts to do more telephone assessments, speaking to the assessors and saying, look, you know, video assessments are a really good idea, because not only can you see the claimant instead of just having a phone call, you can see if they're in pain, you can see if they're uncomfortable, you're more likely to give them a good assessment or see more if you have them on a video. So we did sort of change a little bit during COVID, but obviously we're going back now to the face-to-face now we can, and doing what we do best, really. But that's really us, that's what we do.
Thanks, Michelle. Is there a charge for your service, or can people just come and access it What's the advice?
We have different levels of it because we don't get any funding. We have recently, this last month, we've got a little bit. We managed to get £5,000 from Bury Council for some funding to start some drop-in coffee days around Bury. So it's something that we're looking at setting up from next month. Our first one's the first week in February, and we do advice. So we'll do something like this, but people can come to us, bring the forms, we'll look at them, we'll help them with them. So that's another option, Artie, if you wanted to come down, we'll be doing one. We're hoping to do one in Bury Centre. We're just negotiating prices for the room at the moment for some of the centres. But we do have 50% of our work is free, and the other 50% comes from chargeable services because we're not for profit, and because we hadn't had any grants until that point. So everything that we do make goes straight back into keeping the free services going. So we always give free advice. We will always try and help someone if they can't afford to pay for any of the services. We don't charge anything above and beyond our cost. So if somebody's coming in and they're saying, look, you know, I've got like 1,000 pages here, I want you to copy them and send them to the department and to the court, then yes, we can do that, but we might ask them for 10 quid towards the cost of us copying it. We have a big super duper printer thing that we pay for. But we'll always do it at whatever it costs us because we don't have any way of recouping them. And we work on a pay it forward basis. So if we did an appeal for you, there's quite a lot of work that goes into that. And it is, we've got 4 lawyers that work with us, 2 of them volunteer with us. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. But if we did an appeal, we would ask afterwards, you pay it forward. So you put back in the pot. So we'd ask for a donation to go back in the pot to help someone else that hasn't got the money. And then it keeps us tottering along. Some people can't put anything back in, that's fine. You know, we'd help them again, it wouldn't be an issue. Some people do, some people put more in, you know, than we even expect them to put in. Some people only can put a little bit in that would maybe buy some stamps for the next one. So we've just sort of worked along from that. I mean, we are hoping that we can get more grants. Now we've had this one. I mean, we've been going for nearly 10 years and we've just been, sometimes it's been really, really hit and miss. Sometimes our landlord, we've got 3 offices, we need 3 big offices for the drop-ins, but our landlord's been really good. And sometimes it's been a case of, oh God, you know, how are we going to go? How are we going to carry on? And we had a little old lady come down with a cheque for £1,000 once that really brought us out of a proper hole that we were in at one point. So it just always seems to work. You know, she decided she wanted to give us that to keep us going, and it worked. So that's just, we're very unlike any other businesses for that reason. We have to rely on something coming in, because obviously we can't say to the gas, the electric and our rent and everybody else, look, do it for free, give us free everything, because it doesn't work like that. Train fares cost money when we're traveling, and, you know, unfortunately, as much as we'd love to, even down to finding somewhere to do this drop-in, we're really struggling to get a disabled-friendly venue for free, even though we're a CIC. So it is very much a case of, you know, we need something coming in, but we try and get the little amount that we do from other services. So the majority of our income comes from PIP form filling. We can guide someone to do it themselves for free, that's fine. We can phone, we can check a form for you, that's completely free. You can come to a drop-in and we can help you do it there, that's free. But if somebody wants a set day when they want a phone call and us to go through it on the phone and do it for them, and we'll send 2 copies out, we'll type it all out, we'll review all the medical records, etc., then we do ask for a charge for that. Now, because PIP's a non-means tested benefit, most people are quite happy to pay that. If they can't afford to, then we'd refer them to one of the free services that we do, and we'd guide them to do it themselves, or say, come along to the next drop-in, we'll sit down with you and we'll go through the main body of questions. So we do have charges, but we always try and work each individual case as much as we can. But advice is always free. Our advice lines, emails and everything, that's completely free advice. And we're quite quick with that as well, even though we get a lot of calls. When I was at CAB, you'd wait 2 weeks for a call back from CAB if you were lucky. Or you'd wait, I used to do the advice line sometimes, and you'd often be waiting months for an email reply, whereas we're pretty quick. We're back usually within 48 hours, you know, with some advice and some links to where to get help, etc.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right.
And one question for Artie before we finish. Artie, you've spoke quite openly that you've had issues with your mental health and well-being. So I'm wondering, if you could share any tips with our little viewers of like how you deal with your mental health and how to keep your mind active, just to maybe encourage other viewers to do the same as you or something similar to yourself.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of it has been being able to understand my disabilities. Actually, a lot of my depression and anxiety just kind of went away when I realised I was autistic and ADHD. So obviously everyone's different. I personally find it difficult to sit in silence, so I don't. I always have some kind of noise in the background that kind of helps me feel more at ease. Understanding those kinds of sensory needs has really helped my mental well-being as well. Everyone has sensory needs, not just autistic people. So
It's just going to ask you something because when Healthwatch announced that you were going to be sharing your personal experience with us today, and we thank you for doing that. But you have a Facebook page and you do writing, is that correct?
Yeah, I write, I make videos, and yell on the internet, basically. Yeah, so that's what I do. I've done a few articles about things to do with disability and mental health. I've done one about being sort of having multiple disabilities and trying to navigate the disabled community where there is a lot of lateral ableism from other people, how difficult it can be finding a space where you feel safe. I've also done one for like the queer community and how they can do better by disabled people. And I'm working at the moment on the piece about my experiences through the UK mental health care system as a queer trans person. So that's hopefully coming up soon.
That's really interesting. So I'm going to ask you the same question in a minute, Michelle, but obviously with what you do, Artie, I think a lot of that could help a lot of people. So can you share with us any links, any contact details where people can connect with you who have maybe experienced the same sort of situations you have, but just need a bit of extra support? And I think that what you do can really help others.
Yeah, that's pretty much why I do what I do. Like I do quite really long form videos on some of my personal experiences, as well as some blog posts. So I think I gave all those details to Catherine anyway, who said they would be in the description or linked somewhere. So people should be able to find me quite easily that way. But I am just Artie Carden pretty much everywhere, so you should be able to find me that way. But I mainly talk about my mental health, ADHD, autism, Crohn's, and my vasculitis, Takayasu's, and a little bit of the hypermobility and fibromyalgia stuff too.
Thank you, Artie, and thank you for sharing your story with us today. And Michelle, how can people contact Fightback4Justice?
Just you can Google us, but pretty much. But we have an advice line. Again, I'm not sure, Catherine, whether you're sharing those details at the end, but we have got our contact details will be posted up. We've got an advice line that's open Monday to Friday, sort of around 9 till 5-ish. We also have email that you can get hold of us on, and you can also message us on Facebook as well. We have volunteers on there. Artie, can I just say, what you're doing is just as important as what we do at the end of the day. Helping other people and paying it forward is basically what we've gone along with the whole time we've been doing Fightback, and we started off quite small with sharing experiences, etc. And some of our volunteers shared their experiences, and that's how we ended up growing. So You know, it's good what you're doing, and really appreciate you opening up and obviously explaining your situation from your point of view. It's very, very important to get that out there, I think, because a lot of people want to give up, and this is the biggest thing. You know, this is why we call Fight Back for Justice, because you just want, you know, people should fight for what they feel they're entitled to at the end of the day. A lot of people just give up and they don't do that, and they accept less, and they shouldn't accept. You should never accept less at the end of the day. But sometimes hearing somebody else's story can encourage people to do it themselves. And I think it's vitally important people like yourself, you know, carry on doing that as well. And you know, for everybody really, for all of us, it just gives somebody a little bit of a spur on to think, oh, you know, I saw that and I thought, you know what, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to appeal it. And it doesn't just work for benefits, does it? It's for everything.
Thank you to both of you today. On behalf of myself and Healthwatch Bury, because I'm founder of the Butterfly Princess End Initiative, so on behalf of that and Healthwatch, I'd like to thank you both. And I've no more questions. I don't know if anyone else has.
I do have one thing to just say though. I found out in my last assessment that everything they scan in is in black and white. So if you're trying to be helpful and highlight anything, don't.
Yeah.
Underline instead, maybe, because I wasted a lot of time highlighting things so they could see the things that were relevant in all the paperwork, and it doesn't even show up because it's in black and white. So
yeah, I know it doesn't. We've done it as well. We started off doing it and then we realized that, you know, it doesn't make a difference. So we always say put the most important ones on the top, because if they're only going to read half a dozen of your letters, which they shouldn't do, but you always put your most important ones to the top, or the ones you feel are the most relevant letter-wise. But no, they don't. They scan in black and white, and the same goes for photographs. If you're sending in photographs, they can't see them. And they don't only scan in black and white, but you'll be absolutely, probably won't be surprised to know, but they don't even look at the scans before they put them on. They scan on the cheapest copiers that they can probably find. So 9 times out of 10, something that goes to them in perfect condition and is perfectly able to be scanned comes back looking like somebody's crawled all over it and spilled coffee on it sometimes, or it's back to front, upside down, or even blank. And that happens when you send stuff to court as well. It comes. We've sent 200 pages of doctor's records, and they've come back to us. They've copied the wrong side. It's been blank. 200 pages of nothing, and there's not one person there has thought, hang on a minute, this can't be right. They've just carried on copying. So just to give you an idea what we're dealing with.
It's been some really helpful advice and tips, and obviously I pass back to Catherine now to close the session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for Michelle and Artie for joining us today. Such an interesting discussion, such an amazing topic to talk about. I know we did go a little bit over time today, but you know, we really could have talked all day about this topic. And I will link all your contact details in the comments below. So yeah, I'm just going to end the live now. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate both of you sharing your experiences and what you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.